I can tell you that I've been fortunate enough to play with some of the greatest American players of all time. None of them had all of the tools in the toolbox that Clint Mathis had.
Greetings, folks, and welcome to Inside American Soccer. I'm Matt Doyle, the armchair analyst, and I'll be filling in for new dad Tom Bogert for a couple more weeks. Reports out of the Bogert household have indicated no strife early days after the transfer window move for young Theo. I am honored to be joined by my new friend, one of the greatest players in U.S. soccer history, a veteran of 3 World Cups. You could say the face of the national team in the 1990s, Tab Ramos, and we're joined by a guy who might have been the face of the national team for part, at least, of the 2000s. An incredible guest, another U.S. soccer legend, an MLS Cup champion, and one of the greatest Metro stars of all time, Clint Mathis. Gentlemen, it is wonderful to be here with the two of you.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Hey, Clint, thank you so much for coming on. Obviously, I don't really know where to start with you because it is a little bit difficult for me. Clint and I were roommates with the Metro Stars for a little while. And then, I was so happy to see that was his sort of where his career started to lift into international stardom. And I had an opportunity to live a little bit of that with Clint in the room, with him eating all the jelly beans possible that he could eat. And I have to say this, I couldn't start the show if I didn't say that Clint has been my favorite American player of all time. And I know that everyone has different lists and everyone can judge different people according to stats or how long their career was or what teams they were on or whatever else. But I can tell you that I've been fortunate enough to play with great American players and some of the greatest American players of all time. And what I can say about that is that none of them had all of the tools in the toolbox that Clint Mathis had, starting from his great technical ability, his speed, his ability to process information on the field to deliver a pass, the quality and pace of a pass. He was good in the air. He could take a free kick with the right foot or the left foot, which no one can do. I mean, it's just, I could go on and on. His dribbling, everything Clint did was amazing. And on top of it, he was a down-to-earth person with a huge heart who always spoke about his mom. We talked about his mom in Georgia in the room all the time. Clint, I'm so happy to have you here. And for all those fans out there who don't know as much about you, I really wish they did.
Yeah, I appreciate it. It does sound like, Tab, you did get the brown envelope that I sent you before the show, so I appreciate that. Yeah. So you went right on cue. I think you read it verbatim how I wrote it. But no, I really appreciate it. It was a weird transition, I think, at that time. A lot of people don't know. I enjoyed LA. That's who I got drafted by, and it was kind of a weird situation that nobody in today's world of the MLS would even understand all the rules and stipulations and how I ended up at New York. But it was a blessing in disguise. Like Tab said, it was one of those things that I think kind of really launched my career. I mean, I was doing, pretty good at LA and getting to play and things of that sort. But I was definitely put on a different pedestal at the Metro Stars, and to have someone like Tab to put me under his wing and help me out was definitely a blessing. So I appreciate all the kind words, Tab, and you have a lot to do with that. Being able to walk in your footsteps and watch what you did on the field and how you carried yourself. Definitely, I think emulated a lot of stuff that I wanted to do as well.
Well, it worked. You passed it down, Tab, and Clint, of course, became a star for the U.S. during that 2002 World Cup. And on today's show, we're going to discuss some guys who are hoping to have their moment in the spotlight this summer in the 2026 World Cup, including Weston McKennie. who's scoring goals for fun with Juventus, now playing as a number 10. I'm not sure everybody saw that coming. We'll get Clint starting 11 for the current U.S. men's national team. And, of course, his unique perspective on how this team would be best in attack, because Clint wasn't just a forward. He was also a playmaker, and he would play out wide a little bit. So he kind of sees the game a little bit differently than I think most people do. And we'll also go inside the locker room with Clint for some stories, including, I don't know if folks know this, but he was on the cover of Sports Illustrated pretty famously back in 2002, sporting that Mohawk that became a signature look. You were a valuable part of that team that made it to the quarterfinals and arguably could have gone even further, maybe even should have gone even further. You pretty famously outplayed Germany in that quarterfinal game. So what did make that 2002 team so special?
I mean, I think Bruce, what he's done really a great job in his career is managing the locker room. Is he the best tactician or, soccer mind or anything like that? I mean, that's up for debate on anybody's, standpoint of what they thought of Bruce. But I enjoyed Bruce. I mean, he brought that, that level of respect in the locker room, that each player valued each other. But he also got good soccer players. So I think that that's a mix that, maybe we didn't see always in the past. I mean, I bring up, the 98 World Cup, which I think Tab would agree was a disaster. And that was on many levels and things of that, standpoint. But I don't think you really saw that on that team in 2002. I mean, everybody was having fun. They enjoyed themselves. They wanted to go win, and they cared about each other. We were always hanging out with each other, whether it be in the hotels on trips or going out to dinner and things of that sort. So I think Bruce did a really good job of being a manager in that case when the American, soccer team or the whole portrayal is a coach. And I think that you look across the world, it's really, about managing players, especially at the level that and what kind of money these guys are making now, is being able to manage egos, being able to steer them in the right, direction and get to that common goal. And I think Bruce, I think did a really good job there.
If I could go back a little bit on that team, because I was part of that team until 2000. Here's the neat thing, and I want to see if you remember. So I was on that team through the qualifying process until we got to the final hex. And I noticed, obviously, that, Bruce was not playing me all the time. I used to come in the games, like the last 20 minutes. Sometimes I started sometimes, and then sometimes I would come off the bench. And I'm sure you remember at the time, I have both of my older kids now were small at the time, and I always had them with me. And I really suffered, traveling and being away from my family a lot. And then when I noticed that I wasn't going to play all the time, I went and spoke with Bruce, and we were gearing towards that end before the Hex came, which is obviously the most important games. And I said to Bruce, "Hey, Bruce, I went to meet with him, and I said, hey, Bruce, you're not playing me all the time. I really don't feel like I'm a sub. I totally understand it, respectful of your opinion, but." I just want to see where you see me between here and the World Cup, because that would have been my 4th World Cup. And he said, well, look, I mean, I like what you have to offer, but I see you more as coming off the bench, holding the ball for us when we're winning or when we're losing, helping, to make some plays in the final third. And I understood that. But at the same time, and every player is different. Sometimes you have the veteran players who like taking the role of, hey, I'm going to be on the bench and I'm just going to be supportive and I'm just going to sit there and watch. And when they need me, I'll come in. And I wasn't that guy. And I recognized that I wasn't that guy. And I said to Bruce, well, Bruce, listen, if that's the case, everything is good. But after this round, I'm just going to retire. And, I remember this because sometimes you also want the coach to say, oh, no, please don't retire. But he didn't say that. He was like, well, if that's how you feel about it, and that's how you feel this is going to serve you best, he goes, then I will support you in that. And so the reason I'm telling this story, not about me, but because my last game in the last game of that round before we went into the Hex was in Barbados against Barbados. And Clint, you scored your first international goal that day on my last game with the national team. So we have a little bit more of a connection. And actually, that ball of that game that you scored the goal with is right here, right behind me, right over my left shoulder. So
That's funny.
yeah. So good story with your beginning of your great international career and my end.
Yeah, no, that is a good story, and I do remember that goal. And actually, my leg, I remember that game that I might remember more than the goal is I got studded pretty good about halfway up my leg, and I still have that to where it's like the capsule that holds your calf. I guess that ripped, and I had like a golf ball sticking out at halftime. And I remember the trainer, Rick Gooter's like, oh, yeah, it's just your muscle popping out. I was like, all right, no big deal. Let's just move on.
And
But
by the
yeah,
way,
I still have that now.
by the way, we were 0-0 in that game at half. I started that game.
Yes.
And we were 0-0 at halftime and needed to win that game, which we ended up winning 4-0.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was not easy.
Yeah, no,
I remember watching that one. Yeah,
sure.
I mean, that was a pure CONCACAF field. It was a cow pasture. And I remember watching that one and being nervous. And then I think the first goal was Clint's at about the hour mark. And then the floodgates opened. And you guys, of course, spun that forward into the Hex. And the Hex was up and down, but you got through it. And then you got to the World Cup. And you made it all the way to the quarterfinals. And it's the one World Cup that I think people for the U.S. fans consider to be unambiguously successful. Bitterness over how it ended, the referee not calling that obvious handball on Torsten Frings, but pride and success nonetheless. And it's always been shades of gray since then to one degree or another. And that brings us to this summer. Because we have players now playing some of the biggest clubs in the world and not just playing bit parts, right? Like Christian Pulisic is one of the best players for AC Milan, and Weston McKennie, who I already mentioned, scoring for fun for Juventus and playing a bigger and bigger role seemingly by the week. So given that, what is the barometer for success for the U.S. at the World Cup this summer? Does it have to be at least quarterfinals, or like do you have to go further than the previous? Do you have to go all the way to the semifinals? Where is that bar for you guys?
I mean, I think you just look at through the history of this team or whatever, and the furthest that the teams have made it is the quarterfinals, and every team's come up short. Granted, that 2002 team, I think people think you got stiffed or whatever, but the game is the game. And whether you get through that, if we would have scored 3 goals, nobody would have been talking about the handball. So it is unfortunate that, that did happen. And, we were the better team. I mean, I remember even the German players even admitting that and telling some of the guys that, the Claudio Reynas, the other players that played against those guys and with those guys in Germany, it was like, yeah, you guys were the better team, but it wasn't our day. So it was unfortunate. So, I mean, I don't really look at it as a success, a failure. You never know who you're going to get when you get out of group play per se, or you don't. It's any given Sunday, like any sport. So you want to go out there and really, as far as success, you want to make to that quarterfinals. But I mean, you want to see them go all the way. But is that going to happen? Nobody's going to know. I mean, in 2002, nobody would have thought England, Argentina, France wouldn't have made it out of their group play. But now you got a team, the U.S., you got South Korea making it out of their group with Portugal in it. And so it is one of those weird things. And I think the level of soccer, from a world standpoint, has gotten better. I mean, just look at us here in CONCACAF when you could literally go, all right, U.S. and Mexico are going to go through, no problem, no big deal. Now we're struggling, sometimes against, these Central American teams. And it's just goes to show that the sport itself has gotten better worldwide. So I think as far as just getting out of the group and then taking it step by step and knowing that it's game to game, I think that this team does have the potential to do things, but it's about stepping on that stage and not worrying about the surroundings or, putting pressure on yourself. I mean, I go back to 2002, and that was one good thing that I think that I was good at in my career is not putting any pressure. I was always joking. That's how the Mohawk came about. I was trying to get the guys laughing. I don't think it made Bruce laugh too well because I ended up showing up late to that team meeting because we thought it was 30 minutes later. But that's another story in itself. But it's just about making the guys laugh and not worry about it. Just go out and have fun and play. And that's what my mom always taught me. And that's when you're going to play your best. That's what I tell my kids now. No matter what you do, go have fun doing it because that's when you're really going to thrive and shine. Because once pressure sets in, it just eats you alive.
Yeah, and I mean, I couldn't agree with that more. And obviously, that's the one thing about Clint that always stood out to me was that nothing was too big for him. And Clint would come in, and regardless of the game, regardless of the pressure, regardless, and I think you'll remember this, Clint, right before you ended up going to Hanover, that Bayern Munich obviously was really interested in you, and all of those things. Clint was really the guy in U.S. soccer that everyone was looking at and looking after. And I don't remember Clint ever changing at all. I remember being his roommate and him always being the same. And we always had sort of that type of relationship. And I'll go back to a story now that actually has nothing to do with this World Cup. But later on, I became technical director, youth national team, and the under-20 coach. And I brought Clint with me on a trip. Clint, if you remember, we were in Atalanta in Italy. We're getting ready to play Atalanta, and we're training at this facility out in the middle of nowhere, surrounded by horses. Let's see if you can recall this story, right? And so what I did with all the coaches is before we start the training sessions, the coaches would get there early. We'd set up the whole field, and then we'd play soccer golf. So it didn't matter if it was, if I brought out Landon Donovan or Clint or whoever it was, the assistant coaches, we would all get together. We each have a ball, and we'd say, okay, now you got to bend the ball around that goal. And then on the second touch, you got to put it into the D. On the third touch, you got to put it into, let's say, the goal only hitting the net, right? So you make up all these things, and we play soccer golf. But I don't know if you remember, it was you and I and Tony Miola, and we're playing soccer golf, and I think you kick off, and it's like, you had to hit a 50-yard ball, and then I go next, and I hit like a 50-yard ball, and then Tony comes on and shanks one. And by the way, Tony did hit a great ball, but he shanks it, and as he shanks it, do you remember what happened?
I'm trying to remember.
As he shanks it, there's a horse in the background that goes like,
oh, yeah.
We were dying laughing because
it's like a jackass moment.
Right.
Sure.
It was like the horse was paying attention when Tony shanked that ball. That horse right away made that noise. It was the funniest moment I had with the youth national teams.
That's good stuff. Keeping it loose is going to be key for any team that wants. You never hear a story about a team that goes into a tournament and does well and says, yeah, we were tight the whole time. There's always a certain level of camaraderie and everybody being on the same page. It's what we're hoping for from the U.S. men's national team this summer. Guys who are going to be playing key role. I already mentioned it a couple of times. Weston McKennie, doing really well for Juventus right now. They have reportedly offered him a 4-year contract and now want to make him a centerpiece, which is something that it felt like was never going to happen for Weston. He had to come in and prove himself over and over and over again to one new coach after another. Now there's Inter Milan rumors as well. They may try to swoop, and because he is out of contract this summer, technically. What do we think? What role should Weston play, and do you want to see him stay with Juventus?
I mean, for me, I look at it as it's always easier looking from the outside in. You don't know what's going on behind closed doors or anything like that. I honestly want what's best for him. If it's something where he feels like his point of his career, if he wants to make a change, so be it. I think I learned this a long time ago with a little help from Tab as well, but nowadays loyalty's out the window. People expect that loyalty to be from players, but it's not reciprocated. And so, what loyalty is there for Weston, or, it's what's going to be best for him and his family and his future. And the only person that's really going to know that is Weston. So there's going to be shame whether he stays. There's going to be shame whether he leaves. But I honestly just want what's happy for him and what he thinks what's best for him and his future, moving forward. If that's somewhere that he's comfortable, and he thinks that he's going to, play better, get more minutes. I mean, that can change at a drop of a hat. But I think that that's something that, he needs to think through and say, hey, is it time for a change? Do I want to push myself to try another team, try another league? Where does that sit with him? So that's really the advice that I could give him is like, don't worry about what people are telling you what to do and what you should do. Just think about what's best for you right now and what's gonna, keep you mentally right because as Tab can attest, in a blink of an eye, this career is gone. And so you're always looking back going, could I have done this? Could I have done that? Should I have done this? At that point, it doesn't matter. So when you do have it in the palm of your hands, think how this is going to affect you in the future and what's going to make you happy, because that's going to drive the career longer. Happiness is what this everybody in this world needs, and so you need to find what's going to make you happy in that regards, and not about putting these great patches of all these great clubs wherever, because at the end of the day, it's going to be gone.
Yeah, I mean, Matt, Weston is in a great situation right now. He's been the best player for Juventus over the last 2 months. Juventus fell asleep on this one big time. This is something that they should have done likely about 6 to 8 weeks ago. And now they're in a tough situation. I think the offer, as I'm sure I've seen the same you've seen, the offer seems like a pretty good offer for Weston for multiple years. I would like to see that happen because it seems like Juventus is really putting their foot forward and making a good effort to pay him like a true international star player, which he deserves to be. And I'm not surprised that other teams are in at this point. Weston's in a great situation. And he'll have plenty of teams to choose from. But having said that, I mean, the value that he has for Juventus, I mean, you look over the last 2 months, he's played 3 or 4 different positions for them and has done well in all of them. And I think he's invaluable, and I think they will do, if Weston McKennie ends up leaving Juventus, is not going to be because Juventus hasn't tried their absolute best to keep him.
Yeah, especially now that he is playing not just a utility role, though, as you said, he does play 3 or 4 different positions, but he's become a centerpiece player, right? They're finally putting him in position, not just to cover for other players' deficiencies, but in a position to sort of maximize his skill set with that box arrival, his ability to pick the last pass. It's fun to see. It's also what we've seen from AC Milan with Christian Pulisic the past couple of years. Now, there are some reports out of Italian media, I'm going to call them dubious, right? They're not as well sourced as the stuff around Weston at this point, saying that Tottenham Hotspur have identified Christian as one of their primary transfer targets this summer. You understand why, given how much they're struggling, Spurs, and given how good Christian has been, given that he has experience in the Premier League and has played really well at times for Chelsea. Do we want that to happen, or is that something where, you know what, you have it good with a great team in AC Milan, ride that and become a legend there rather than trying to salvage something with Spurs?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with what you're saying. I mean, it's one of those things that, is Spurs obviously trying to rekindle everything what they had, during the Harry Kane times and things of that sort. I go back to what I said about Weston. Christian should be selfish in what makes him happy. It's not just because, be like a squirrel and every golden shiny thing you go to chase. He's proven that he can play in the Premier League. He did it with Chelsea. Maybe he didn't get all of the chances and all of the playing time that maybe he should or he is getting at AC Milan, and that does come into a factor. So I think that's one of those things too from his standpoint. is it going to be a money grab and say, hey, I would like to go back to England. Maybe he misses it. Who knows? That's something that he's going to decide. But, it's about, once again, what's going to make him happy during his playing time? Is it to stay somewhere where he's playing and comfortable and doing well? Is it something where he just stays in Italy and maybe goes to another team like, Weston's looking at as well? Because that is a big jump, especially when you're used to a certain playing style, which we all know that playing in Italy is definitely going to be different than playing in the Premier League. Do I think Christian can do it? Absolutely. But it's going to be more of something that I think that he needs to make that more selfish decision of where he's going to be happiest.
Yeah, and I'll make it short. I mean, obviously, I agree with all of that. Money obviously is a factor. I don't think that Milan would be able to match an offer that potentially, Tottenham could put on the table. Christian has been in the Premier League before. That helps. He's done great in Italy now, which means that even if he went to England, he could always come back to Italy, I'm sure. But having said all those things, I've been sort of against Christian leaving Serie A because he's done so well in it and he's comfortable there, as Clint said. At the same time, if you could look at, the future there and potentially Solanke with Xavi Simons and Pulisic behind, it's not so bad either, and that's a good opportunity for him as well to play. By the way, it's the best, the EPL is the best league in the world. So it would be a great opportunity for him. But I think at this point, looking at it from the outside, staying in Milan seems to be the right thing.
Yeah, he's done well there. Milan, for my money, better city than London, but not everybody feels that way necessarily. But for us, it's time for a break. We'll be right back and get into Clint's starting 11 for the U.S. men's national team. In the meantime, please rate, review, and subscribe to Inside American Soccer with Tom Bogert and Tab Ramos, wherever you get your podcasts. All right, welcome back to Inside American Soccer. We're here with Clint Mathis. And Clint, we want to get your thoughts on the best starting 11 for the U.S. for this World Cup. So, my friend, take it away.
All right, well, you got to bear with me. I'm not going to be as knowledgeable as everyone, all the viewers out there. I do have 4 kids, so it's not the easiest to keep up with all the soccer.
Yeah,
when
we'll
I'm
let
dealing
you
with
work one of them, into the lineup, and we'll give you that pass.
Exactly. All right, well, I got Freeze in goal, and then we'll go from left to right. Left back with Anthony Robinson. I still like Tim Ream in there. Just because he has that veteran side of him. He holds the fort down really well, and then putting Richards beside him to add a little speed there. And then I still like Dest on the right. I think he's a great player. He's able to get up and down on that right side. We've seen, I know he's at PSV now, but just bringing back his Barcelona days, watching him. So I like him there. I'm going to throw Tyler Adams in that holding spot. I like Tyler being able to hold the fort down. And right beside him, the reason I want Tyler there is having McKennie right beside him, but give McKennie a role where he's free to go forward more. More of that up and down midfielder where Tyler can hold the fort down a little bit more. And then right in front of them, I think, just from the little bit that I've seen him play, I think he's done real well as Tillman. So I think he would be a good one holding it up there. You could also put Christian in that same role where Tillman is. But I think from what we've seen Pochettino do is having him out on the left side, sometimes on the right side. I think he does a great job coming in. So I'll put Christian on that left side, kind of like as that winger forward that has a little bit more freedom. Kind of like a Landon, sometimes when he would play out on the wide, being able to come in underneath. On the right side, I'll go with Weah. I like his speed, and I think him and Dest would be able to interchange a lot. Weah still has the engine to be able to get back, where him and Dest could intertwine there, and then put Balogun up top. I think that he's been real consistent from the games that I've got to see. So that would be my starting 11.
So this is
the World Cup as of today.
Yeah, so this is interesting because we've all been talking about potentially the 3 or 5 in the back, right? Because that's what Pochettino has changed to over the last couple months, and he's been successful with that. To be fair, this is also not a bad way to look at it, because if you think about it, our first 2 games being Paraguay and Australia, it's likely that we're going to need more attacking players. So. Yeah, Pulisic coming inside and playing sort of a little bit of a 10 role, right? Instead of being all the way wide, and then Weah being on the right side with Dest overlapping, and the 2 of them changing is certainly something that could give other teams fits. I'm more of the idea that having Ream on the field sort of obligates us to play 3 center backs instead of 2 to protect him a little bit more. But of course, everybody's going to have different ways to go about it, and obviously it depends on the opponent as well.
Yeah, Clint, you played, as Tab was saying, all over the place, right? You played underneath 2 forwards. You played as a second forward a lot. You even played as a center forward. Where would you fit best in this lineup? And do you see anyone, like Christian kind of has some of the same skills that you had in terms of finding space, picking the ball up underneath a big target forward? Is that something that you notice when you watch him?
Oh, for sure. I think that would be a great spot for him. I mean, I just remember starting off, and obviously with Tab being on the show, but I just remember Tab saying, "Hey, Clint, just get open." He goes, "I don't care where you go, just you have the freedom to run everywhere." Octavio Zambrano was our coach, and he goes, "Clint, I'm just putting you on the field. Just get open and do what you got to do." And, I was lucky to have a player like Tab, that was underneath that had that freedom too. But he was really that playmaker. And at the time to where he said, "Clint, get open. I'll get you the ball. And then once you get the ball, just go do your thing." Mm-hmm. And so I see Christian is one of those players that has that ability to do that. And, with having a Adams, off the lineup that I mentioned, having a Weston behind him. If I was those 2 guys, I would say, "Hey, we're going to be the workhorses for you here, Christian. We want you to have that freedom, save your energy defensively and things of that sort. If Tyler, cheats out a little bit left or whatever to give him more of that freedom, I think they're fine there. Or if it's a Weston that cheats, I think both of those guys can, definitely intertwine and hold that position down. And then you look at a guy like Tillman. I mean, he can even squeeze out on the left and, use his size and things of that sort to help out. But I definitely see Christian being one of those players that is underneath, a big forward that's just picking up little balls, whether it's flick-ons or whether Balogun wins the header or not, kind of like I used to do a lot with, Brian McBride up top. I didn't know where the ball was going to end up. I tried to get the flick, or if it got knocked down or anything, you're just trying to pick up whatever trash you can right there. And then that just leaves the defense vulnerable because they're not set, they're not organized, because they don't know where the ball is. And a lot of times you can break out and, get a one-on-one with a goalkeeper there, or at least a one-on-one with the last defender or anything like that. So I definitely see, Christian in that type of role. I put him out on the left now just because that's what we've seen as far as on paper. But I think that he should have more of that freedom to be just like a roamer type of a player. I mean, you see it in Messi. I mean, not to compare the 2 or anything like that, but, they try to just say, "Hey, Messi, do your thing when you get the ball, but, we're going to cover you defensively." Not that, he's older now and who he is, but even as a younger player, I think that, you look back in the day that, yes, he would work hard defensively and things of that trail and try to help out and show where he should be. But for the most part, when you have special players like that, I think it's good to try to take some of that extra load defensively off, because it does make a big difference when, they do have that freedom to go forward. Because the hardest part about it is scoring a goal. It's not, necessarily defending the goal. It is hard to do that as well, but to get one in the back of the net, you can end a game 1-0 if you're organized and whatnot. But I think that he should have more of that freedom.
All right, it's time for one more break for us. We'll be right back with a story about Clint being on the cover of Sports Illustrated back in the day. Thanks for listening to Inside American Soccer. Please rate, review, and subscribe. Welcome back to Inside American Soccer with Tom Bogert and Tab Ramos. I am Matt Doyle, hosting for Tom. We're joined by Clint Mathis, cover boy of Sports Illustrated, almost 25 years ago now. And you could tell it was in days long past, because when I was talking about that cover earlier in the show, I remembered you, Clint, having the Mohawk while you were on the cover, but you could see clearly this was from before you had the Mohawk. So first of all, tell us about how this unfolded, you ending up on the cover, and what the reaction of the rest of the guys was. And then tell us about the Mohawk and the process for deciding to, pretty famously, I think you had the second most famous haircut at that World Cup behind a certain guy from Brazil.
Gotcha. So yeah, through this, we were preparing for the World Cup. A lot of media stuff is going on, as Tab can attest, and they're doing photo shoots and things of that. And actually, they didn't know who was going to be on the cover yet. There was a possibility. Myself, Landon, and DeMarcus Beasley also did, which ended up coming out for ESPN magazine. We were on the cover of that. And they were like, oh, are we going to, have Clint on the cover of this? He was just on the cover of that. So they didn't know what they were going to do. And then I ended up getting a call that it was going to happen, which was cool. It was before, obviously, the World Cup and before the Mohawk, because I had no intentions to do a Mohawk, or it wasn't really pre-planned or anything like that. Pretty much like my whole life and my career was just flying by the seat of my pants and surprising people with stuff they agreed with and stuff they mostly disagreed with. And this was one of those instances. Yeah, it was fun. It was cool. Right before we leave to go to the World Cup, a funny story about Sports Illustrated, I ended up finding out that they were talking about putting me on the cover back-to-back issues, which has never happened at Sports Illustrated at that time. I don't know if it has now, where an athlete did back-to-back covers on Sports Illustrated, but I guess some things happened. I did not start the first game, and then that's when Landon came on the cover. So it was good to have another soccer player in Landon be on that next cover or whatever. But a funny side note that could have been back-to-back, but cards didn't fall in my favor, which is okay. I enjoyed that one because it at least had Kobe Bryant on the cover with me and the little snippet in the upper left corner.
I wish people could imagine how big that was at the time, right? Because now we're a little bit more used to seeing soccer, being featured in stories and in magazines and obviously all over social media. But at that time, that was so huge to have a soccer player on the cover. That I wish people could sort of understand, like, the moment and how big it was.
No, it was really cool. I mean, I grew up seeing people on the cover of Sports Illustrated, cover of Wheaties boxes, things of that sort. And like you said, you do see more soccer now because it is more mainstream than what it was back in our day, Tab. But yeah, that was one of the things, and I don't remember what the numbers were, but there was only a handful of soccer players that have ever been on the cover. I think Ernie was back in '94. I think Maradona was one time, maybe Pele. So there was only a handful at that time. So it was a great honor for me to, be captured and be asked to be on that cover. And it's one of those things that still come up, like you said, 25 years ago. It still comes up now to where all of a sudden I'll get, even here at my office, I'll get a package because I'm glad they don't know my home address, but I'll get some package here or whatever, and it says, "Oh, will you please sign this Sports Illustrated cover?" and that type of thing. So it is one of those cool things that don't really happen too much in people's lives. So I do cherish that, and I'll never forget that. It's pretty cool moment.
Nothing but support inside the locker room after that, I imagine.
Oh, yeah. Well, they're probably getting fun. And I think on the inside of the Sports Illustrated, I'm sitting in the back of a pickup truck because I was always the redneck on the team. And that's how I ended up getting my nickname Cletus, was from Paul Caligiuri when I go straight from my roots of Georgia to Los Angeles to play for the Galaxy in '98. So, yeah, a lot of little redneck and making fun of my twang and stuff like that. But I rolled with it.
It's authentic. It makes you stand out. So we're going to close the show, and I want to ask you before we go, what is your prediction for the U.S. national team this summer at the World Cup? Like I said at the start, you guys laid a marker with that quarterfinal run 24 years ago, trying to equal or better it this summer. I think the boys will be doing. What is your prediction, Clint?
I think they can make it to the quarterfinals and get through that. Obviously, it's going to be dependent on obviously injuries, things of that sort. But I think the team gets through the group, see who that draw is, they win that game, and then I think that's where the pressure sets in. I think this group, we missed the last World Cup, so this group probably has a little pressure to do a little bit better. I think we do have the players, the experience, which most of the previous World Cup teams don't have that world experience. And we talk about all these guys that are playing in the big leagues in Europe and stuff like that. So I see them getting to the quarterfinals and maybe squeaking through and having our first semifinals.
Yeah, that's a great prediction, and I do think, and I'm not sure if you were going in this direction or not, but I do think that as an American team, we have always been a great underdog, and unfortunately, in this World Cup, we're not going to be the underdog for a while. But if we do get to that quarterfinal game, I think the pressure will finally be off, and if at that point we're playing a quarterfinal game with the pressure off, watch out for the U.S. team.
Yeah. From your lips to God's ears. Let's hope that's how it plays out, boys. And to all our listeners, thank you so much for listening to Inside American Soccer. Please rate, review, and subscribe. And please continue to leave your questions and comments on all of our platforms, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. Tab and I will be back next week. Clint, thanks so much for joining us, folks. We will see you next time.